Hi, I'm Matt Burns. This is my steering wheel. It is Tuesday, May 20th, 2025, and it's currently 1:30 Eastern something time. I just wanted to record my journal for the day. I didn't have a lot that I wrote down, primarily because it says from here, speaking from heart, not paper. So I think that means something along the lines of I'm just going to try to talk it out. I tend to write these journals and just try to stream of consciousness, my thoughts. Here are some of the things that I did today that I wrote down or had thoughts of. So I was doing some work this morning, and I got recommended a Theo Vaughn podcast clip where he's talking about his dad, his relationship with his dad, and his guilt towards his relationship with his dad and things about his childhood. I didn't watch all the video. I probably only watched 3 or 4 minutes of it. But I find it interesting that he is a comedian and he openly will talk about, stuff in his life. I think that's probably why a lot of people like him, because he's super real during those times. But he's also, a funny guy. But he doesn't build in jokes all the time into heavy talks. So I like that he does that, because he gives that room to breathe. I wrote down here about something that I thought of him saying. I wrote down childhood builds adulthood and feelings. He was talking a lot about how the people he meets, the women he tries to meet, or people he wants to be engaged with romantically, he finds that a lot of the issues stem from his dad being an older guy when Theo was born. He was 70 when Theo was born, and he died when Theo was 16. So he talks a lot about his attachment issues sort of being connected with that. And this doesn't really have that much to do with that, but listening to that podcast made me think about the kids that I teach. I teach kids anywhere from preschool up to the oldest ones I have now are going into 6th grade on the piano. And I find it interesting how some parents view the piano. Some parents view the piano lessons as simply as, hey, we don't want our kids to practice. We just want you here to have a good time with them musically for a while, which is fair. And maybe they assume that, if I have a good time with them musically without any other sort of direction, they will practice. And if they like it, they will become good. Based on what I have seen with kids, that is not actually the case always. There are some kids who will just sit down at the piano, and those kids really, really, really love the piano. But I do think most of the kids that I teach, 95%, enjoy the lessons and enjoy the piano. But it's really tough for kids. It's really tough for anybody to sit down at something, especially something you're not immediately good at, really, really good at, and to build time into it. One, trying to get better. It's hard to build time into anything in directly to get better, for the purpose of getting better. It's especially tough for a kid. And even when they like it, there are so many other things pulling them different directions. And actually, the kids that I find that do the best are the ones who do like the lessons, of course, but the parents say, hey, you got to practice 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day before you can play on the iPad, right? And I'm not into forcing kids to do, work and stuff like that. They're kids. They should have a good childhood and a fun childhood. But I am of the opinion, I played a ton of video games when I was a kid, especially a really little kid, and I really did not have that many restrictions. So I played hours and hours and hours of video games. And it sort of builds this habit, playing video games all that time builds this habit even into high school, where I just played so many video games. And I enjoyed it. It wasn't that I didn't like it, but I do believe that everything's pretty much is better in moderation. And even if the kid spent, you know, a lot of kids will tell me they're busy, and I do have some busy students, but, I am almost certain that any one of the students I have could spend 20 minutes a day on the piano. Do I think it's necessary? No. I think something like 5 to 10 minutes a day can be extremely beneficial for a kid. And especially early on, it builds these habits and gets them over the initial shock of difficulty on the piano. And once they're over that initial shock, then things become easier to the point where they can play things that are meaningful, that they like hearing. And so I have written down here that sometimes kids' desires are not fostered by the parents. I work with a lot of good parents, and I think almost any parent who's willing to get their kid piano lessons is probably a parent looking to, do really well for their kids. Almost every parent's looking to do well for the kids. I'm sure there are some that are not. But when I put down kids' desires sometimes not fostered by the parents, I think sometimes parents think that, piano's just there to like build discipline, or just throw something and see if it sticks. And I feel like if the parents of each student were listening to our lessons, they would be able to tell the way that the kid connects with the piano. Because if they're going just on, is the kid practicing, but they don't make them practice, then they're going to think that, my kid doesn't practice, therefore they don't like the piano. When I know in my lessons, like, unless the kid's putting it on, which most cases I do not believe, I believe that the kids are having a really, really good time. And sometimes I think the parents that I work with, certain ones, are not super committed to having the kid continue or be more engrossed in it in the way that they can be. And I'm willing to help, if I need to assign homework or if I need to do certain things to ensure that they will practice, I will do that. But I've also found that kids who are just told to practice, based on our lessons, they will find something to do. So I often find that a lot of the issue is just the parents don't feel like the kid is connecting with it, when really I think they are. And that leads to situations where this summer, there's maybe 20% of my students are taking the summer off of lessons, which I'm not completely opposed to, but they're also the students that are not being supported by the parents in that way. And I get there's summer camps and all that kinds of stuff, but I find it super important for them to at least feel connected to the music, which they're not going to get through the summer if that's the case. Spurring from this, I find that I struggle with my feelings of obligation towards the kids and the families that I teach, primarily because these kids are so young, and I did not have music in my life at a young age. I didn't start playing music until the clarinet in 5th grade, and I probably didn't get bit by the music bug until late 6th grade, early 7th grade. And then I sort of, started really catching on to it and stuff and getting better. But I don't want a parent to think, we gave him 2 years of piano lessons and we didn't feel like it stuck to the kid, when really maybe it did stick to the kid. And the issue was that either through maybe some degree of the quality of my lessons, which I think the quality of my lessons are good, but they can always be better. Some degree the parents maybe not focusing enough on the kids or just directing the kids enough in that specific regard. It can make me feel bad, because what if that kid never connects with music again? And most of these kids are doing really, really well, and I can see the connection with music in their life, and I don't want to be part of the reason why they no longer continue in it and don't find the things that music will grant them throughout their life. yeah, so sometimes I can put my sense of obligation a little high up, and put a lot of pressure on myself. And leading from that, I have having enough emotional stamina to deal with others and myself. There's a lot of emotional stamina I feel like you need working with kids or working directly with anybody, but especially kids, because hopefully most adults can, sort of control their emotions to an extent and regulate themselves. But kids are kids, and a lot of the kids I work with are like second grade boys or third grade boys. And there's just something, when a kid is that age, especially the boys, they really don't know how to regulate their emotions and how to succeed at the things that they're good at or want to do. And so a lot of my burden as a teacher is just sifting through those things, helping them deal with them, and also spend the time on the piano. So I do try to spend good amounts of time working with those kids emotionally, because it ends up that, once I connect with a kid emotionally, the lessons become a million times easier. But some kids you got to keep up with a little bit more, because just like people, you don't always connect with people the same way. But that emotional connection is super duper important. But I find that you only have so much social battery. And me, I am a very social person. I have been throughout my whole life. But since doing piano lessons and giving piano lessons, I have about 25 students now, and most of them, everyone but one, as a kid. And just having the energy to deal with those kids, and my day job, which is very, very easy, but I try to fill it with meaningful things. Dealing with that, and then having to come home and spend 2 hours trying to make sure the apartment isn't a mess or something, and also trying to get in some cardio and eating the right foods and going to sleep at the right time, and having a girlfriend who lives with me. I find that sometimes all of that stress can be really overwhelming. I'm only 26, just turned 26 in the last week. I know that life is going to throw more things my way. I do think maybe long term in my life, I'd like to work a little bit more with adults to sort of balance out some of the emotional stress that I feel from kids. Because I do want to leave myself energy when I get home. But some of that too is just, my own inner thoughts and the way that I think about things. I think if I can reframe some of my thoughts over time, I could have the same amount of kids in my day, but be thinking about them in healthier, less stressful ways, that I can save some stuff for home. And maybe I can just in general take some load off emotionally with most of my life. So yeah, that's about what I've been thinking about recently, just kind of like heavy minded, not even like stress necessarily, just seems to be somewhat overwhelming throughout time. So we'll see how it gets better over time. And I'll keep writing about it. So yeah, that's about it. Have a good one. I'll see you next time.